Tonight, the Secret Six is going to have to change its name because while there are still 6 members, the secret is most definitely out. Justice League shows us what happens when Batman becomes a condescending prick, but like, even more than usual. And Black Canary tries to get away with selling me half an issue at full price. I'm on to you, DC editorial. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 207 of the Not So New 52. I am your host, and last week I did a whole bit where I was saying, oh, hey, it's my birthday week and yada yada yada, don't get old, kids. And it was a joke. It was 100% a joke, and like, fair to the universe, fair play for them literally deciding the day after my birthday, the day after I resigned myself to, getting older, I had just incredible lower back problems. And it was, debilitating the whole day. It was something where I was just like laying down on the ground with a pillow propping up my ass. And I was like, oh God, I have become my father. And I was so disappointed because it's just that beautiful dramatic irony, the day after you're like, yep, I'm old now, ha ha ha, funny joke, and then it just hits you like a truck. Ugh. So comics, we're going to talk about comics. Yeah, all right. So this week there were 12 comics that came out from DC Comics. In alphabetical order of what we'll be covering on this show, I give you Bizarro, Black Canary, Dr. Fate, Doomed, Green Lantern, The Lost Army, Harley Quinn / Power Girl, Justice League, Martian Manhunter, Robin Son of Batman, Secret Six, Superman / Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman. Beyond that, we're in the DCU era. There's not really big events or anything like that, though I will say that Justice League is, of course, the flagship book, and we're still moving our way through Darkseid War. If you don't know what a Darkseid War is, don't worry, neither do I. Not yet, at least. So, yeah. Don't really have anything else to say up here up front, so I will see you in the first comic review, which, yeah, it's probably going to be Justice League. Justice League number 43, written by Geoff Johns, art by Jason Fabok. So last issue, Batman sat on the chair. That's kind of the big, huge thing that happened. This issue picks up with Kalibak, and we get him beating one of the angry demon dog things on Apocalypse, and he's approached by, I think it's Steppenwolf, and Steppenwolf comes up being like, hey, your dad wants you, we're going to Earth. And he's like, nah, I don't, whatever, I don't care. And he's like, what? No, this is part of Darkseid's plan. Like, you need to follow the plan. The battle plan's going on. And he's like, look, I am currently showing restraint by not beating the ever-loving crap out of your head. And he says, oh, but it's for your sister, and it's for Darkseid. And Kalibak just turns and says, pshaw, for Darkseid, you'd be more like for Kalibak. So we cut back over to Batman as he's sitting on the Mobius chair. And he's asking it who the Anti-Monitor is. And that seems to be the only thing that the chair is incapable of answering. And he says, that's weird. My chair doesn't know the answer. And Green Lantern's like, I'm sorry, did you say your chair? You've been sitting on it for 30 seconds, man. This does not seem like a good idea. And he's like, nah, doesn't matter. I'm Batman. It'll work out. I got this. Don't worry. And literally everyone in the Justice League is saying, like, no, you need to get out of the chair right now, man. Like, Green Lantern says how, like, my ring could easily interface with it. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Cyborg's saying, I interfaced with Apocalyptian tech when I was made, and it nearly drove me crazy. Don't get me wrong. I get you're Batman, but, like, why are we risking it? And meanwhile, as they're saying this, Batman's just floating higher and higher, and Steve Trevor's like, does anyone notice he's floating away from us? And he's like, oh, am I? Hey, don't worry about it. Everything's cool. Everything's cool, everybody. So we cut back over to Lex Luthor and Superman. And they're just bickering like an old married couple. They hate each other. And Superman's like, oh, that's weird. This kind of looks like a dark side enslavement camp. And Lex is like, what do you mean kind of? Have you not been here before? I thought you've been here. And he's like, yeah, I've been here, but like I didn't explore the whole planet. What do you want from me? But he starts trying to X-ray, use the supervision and whatnot to look through it. And he's like, it's not working. It's all blurry. It must be lead in the air. And so Lex does a scan of the air and he's like, oh, there are a ton of crazy-ass cancerous toxins in the air, but none of them are lead. And then all of a sudden, he hears the chanting and thuds of people sprinting after them, yelling, death for freedom, death to Superman, and immediately he's tackled down to the ground. So Lex tries firing off a few shots, clearing off the crowd, and Superman's like, hey, don't hurt them. They're slaves. They're innocent people. And Lex is like, they are trying to kill you, and they are scavengers. Like, let's be a little honest here. But Lex, as he's blasting them off, is finally able to clear some off, and Superman literally says, hey, you have to accept they might be brainwashed because even your sister said for Darkseid before she attacked us. And then Lex is just like staring down Superman, and Superman's like, what's going on? And we see, between all the fighting and everything that's happened, Superman has been bloodied. He is bleeding. And he's like, it's not the fact that there's lead in the air that's blocking your supervision. There's no sunlight here. You're getting drained very quickly of your powers. And Superman's like, crap. So we cut over to the home of Marina Black, which obviously she's left. Scott Free also left that place, and we see that, what's his name? Kanto. That's the one. Kanto and I think Lashina are there, and they're like, all right, neither of them are here, but Scott Free's blood is on the ground, and Kanto takes a real interest in that. He's like, this is the only guy who managed to escape me, and this is personal, and I just need to focus on that, okay? And Lashina's like, no, Darkseid said focus on Marina Black. She's more important. We're doing her thing first. And he's like, maybe. So we cut over to Grail, who has carved a summoning circle for Darkseid, I guess. It's got a big Omega symbol and a bunch of other smaller circles on it. And she takes out her, I'm going to call it a cleaver, and slashes her own palms, does a blood sacrifice, and starts summoning up her father. So we then get over to Batman on the chair. He's like, yeah, I looked up everything about her. I know her name's Grail, daughter of Darkseid, trying to summon him, whole thing. And the rest of the league kind of just comes together. They're like, okay, she said she was an Amazon. What's that about? And it's like, oh, her mother was an Amazonian assassin. She was born on the same night you were born. And Shazam's like, that's kind of creepy. You're born on the same day as Darkseid's daughter. That's weird. And then all of a sudden a boom tube opens up. Mr. Miracle walks in. He's like, hey, everyone, my name's... And Batman's like, oh, he's scot-free. He's one of the new gods. He prefers to be called Mr. Miracle. He was born on New... And everyone's like, okay, thank you, Mr. Wikipedia. We can look up the DC fandom articles ourselves. So Mr. Miracle looks over at Metron, who's still hanging out there, and he's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I came to warn them. And he's like, no, you didn't. You've got plans upon plans. I don't believe a word of that. But he takes the lasso of truth, wraps around his hand, and says, all right, let me give you guys a reason to believe me. And he says how he's afraid that he's going to die before he sees the woman he loves again, but there's nothing he can do because Darkseid's arrival is imminent, and the number one thing they need to focus on right now is getting the Anti-Monitor away from Earth. And Wonder Woman's like, he's telling the truth. Even the lasso doesn't work. There's no telling how it works on New Gods. You can see it in his eyes. And Batman's like, okay, fair enough. You guys go deal with that. I'm going to look up more about the Anti-Monitor in this chair, and the chair is telling me that I can get information by scouring the multiverse, so I'm gonna go do that. And Hal Jordan's like, I'll come with you. We could use some male bonding time. Also, you're kind of crazy right now. And Powering's like, shouldn't I come with you? You're kind of my trainer. Like, I don't know what I'm really doing right now. My ring is talking to me saying that I'm going to die. And he's like, hey, don't worry about that. Don't be afraid. And you're just going to go hang out with Barry. He's cool. So they then question what they're going to do with Metron, because obviously Mr. Miracle's going with them. And Mr. Miracle just pulls out some handcuffs and like chains him up to a wall and says, yeah, that'll do it. All right, bye, everybody. So they all go off on their separate ways, and Metron just looks at the handcuffs and says, oh, soon I will be free. So as Superman and Lex are outrunning the crowd, Lex is like, can you fly? And he's like, nah, I don't think so. Soon enough, I'm going to be fully depowered and I'll be human. And Lex is like, no, you will never be human. Let me make that very clear. But for right now, you're just going to have to trust me. And he outstretches a hand and helps Superman fly up above the rest of the crowd so they don't get killed. We cut to the Anti-Monitor, who's just bored, waiting for Darkseid to show up, and Grail's like, hey, it's more of an art than a science. Don't worry, he's going to show up. And then boom tube, all of a sudden, Justice League is there, and Grail's like, oh, hey, how's it going? You guys want to fight again? And Wonder Woman's like, oh, leave now, and you'll be able to live. And she's like, yeah, okay. And then all of a sudden, bigger boom. It's Darkseid. It's an army of parademons. It's a bunch of the new gods of Apocalypse. And Grail's like, hey, Dad, how's it going? And Power Ring looks to Wonder Woman and is just like, we got Anti-Monitor and we got Darkseid on opposite sides here. Who do we fight? And Wonder Woman's internal monologue is basically saying something about Odysseus and like passing through the strait of blah, 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 ancient lore. And he basically says like, there's no good answer here. We're going to lose some people. Like, that's going to happen. Sometimes all that is left are bad choices. And we cut over to Superman and Lex as they're trying to outrun some parademons, and of course the rest of the people following them. And he's like, all right, we don't have another option here. Superman, you are powered by the sun, by solar energy. The fire pits of Apocalypse give off that same energy. I'm gonna drop you into a fire pit. And Superman says, I don't think, and he's like, don't care. So he drops him into a fire pit just as Lex gets attacked. Anti-Monitor and Darkseid start throwing blows at each other. And then all of a sudden on the Lex Luthor side of things, fire pit erupts. Superman comes out now negative. His highlights are shadows, and his shadows are highlights. And he says, Luthor, I should have killed you a long time ago. That's the issue. It's weird. This is a meta point, 100%. But it's weird because we're in part 3 of Darkseid War. And I know that this is going to go until issue 50 with a lot of tie-ins in the middle. Like, we're doing a whole cutaway thing for like a month. The fact that they're already fighting is not a good sign for pacing. Now, counterpoint, the art is beautiful. I love every panel of the art. Like, I would put some of this stuff just as like a framed piece. It looks that good. But I'm a bit concerned with the fact that we're getting into the fight now, and yes, there are still pieces on the table, but like I'm really concerned for how long this is going to be dragged out. It's not a good sign at this point. Yeah, beyond that, I mean, it's a fine enough issue. I like I said, the art, the way that the characters speak, everything else is fine. It's just from a meta viewpoint of looking out at the larger picture. How long is this really going to feel? So I'm going to say an 8. I think it easily gets to the 8 just on art and writing alone. Even if I'm concerned about the general meta arc stuff, it's nowhere near enough to impact how good of a just straight issue this is. So yeah, hopefully it keeps up that pace, and hopefully we can actually, make it feel like things are happening each issue. Because this one, iffy, but still there. Secret 6, number 5, written by Gail Simone, art by Dale Eaglesham. So last issue, issue 3 and 4 may have been swapped. Regardless, all you need to know is that Black Alice is kind of recovering. And everyone else has got a little bit of a family unit thing going on. So we open up with Big Shot in a horrific, just overly detailed page of him just saying red hot wieners for everybody as he's grilling. And we have Catman basically saying like, hey man, phrasing? Are we doing phrasing still? And he's like, what? Oh, right. You're all perverts. Every last one of you. I don't understand why. But he's just basically talking, saying, yeah, all right, that's what we're doing. Can you track down everybody where everybody's at? And it's like, yeah, well, we got Porcelain and Ventriloquist are just sitting at the table waiting. Strix is up in your tree, watching over us while holding a garden gnome. And Black Alice is still up in your room sleeping. And mind you, they cut to her and she's like 4 feet above the covers. So Big Shot's like, yeah, I don't know. Catman saying, I don't know what's up with her. Big Shot says, hey, she's just a kid. She, someone needs to watch over her at least for a little bit. And Catman gets honest with me. He's like, look, Damon, Big Shot's real name, Damon, thank you. Like, you didn't have to take us in. You don't have to be feeding us, but you did it. It's your responsibility now, and you've shouldered it well. And he's like, no. A responsibility is something that you have to shoulder, good or bad. It's something you have to do. You guys are my duty, which is meaning that I take pride in being able to do that. Like, if I were to have to step in front of a bullet, I would do so gladly if it were my duty. Like, that's how it goes. And so he sets down all the hot dogs and hamburgers for everybody, and it's just like, all right, hey, can you go up and get Black Alice? Like, bring her down, let her know it's time to go. So Catman goes up, muttering like, oh, duty, huh, yeah, interesting. And as he wakes up Alice is talking about how she was having a dream about a swamp guy and a bunch of wizards. I racked my brain to try to think if she was in a Swamp Thing book at some point, but I couldn't place it. However, Catman gets really, really pissed off by a photo on the nightstand. And he's like, what the hell? Who was that? And he picks it up and he's like, what? That's Big Shot's wife. I don't know. He just had the photo framed. And Catman flashes back and realizes that this is the woman that electrified him and put him in that cage and like locked them up. And he's just like, oh, I'm gonna go kick his ass. So he starts running out the room. Black Alice is like, wait, hold on. No. Look, he's literally the only nice guy I have ever met. Please, you have to promise me you're not going to hurt him. And he's like, excuse me, he's got a framed photo of the woman who put me into that coffin. And you're saying that he's married to her. So yeah, I'm going to go get an explanation. She's like, right, get an explanation. Just don't hurt him. Give him the chance to explain. And Alice's hands start glowing with like energy or whatever. And he's like, all right, hey, look, your hands are burning me. Like, chill out. And she's like, oh, sorry. By the way, your pecs are just mwah. And he's like, okay, stop. I promise. I will go down and talk to the man. So he goes down. They're already eating the hot dogs or whatever. And Catman just says, as calmly as he can, he's like, I'm going to ask you nicely, why do you have a photo of the woman who tried to kill me? And also assumingly works for Mockingbird. And immediately Big Shot, like, panel goes red. He's pissed off. He's like, you better set that photo down right now or I'm counting to 1. And immediately everyone's like, all right, here we go. We're going to fight. So Big Shot hulks out. He grows huge. Everyone starts attack. Well, I say everyone. Strix jumps into the match. Black Alice is just yelling off from the sideline saying, stop it. We don't have to fight. And Porcelain and Ventriloquist just sit there enjoying their food saying like, yeah, this is always going to happen. It's like if you tell a ballet dancer that she can't dance, like eventually it's just going to build up and it's going to release, even if it's in a way that isn't exactly healthy. These people are trained as weapons. They are only knowing how to fight. And then you tell them they can't beat anybody up. It's natural. It's just going to come out. So Black Alice uses her abilities to take on the abilities of Hawk. What those abilities are, I don't know, but she gets the costume and then starts jumping in and slashing. To which point, Catman's just like, okay, enough. We saw the picture. Who is Mockingbird? And Big Shot comes over, picks up the photo, looks at it and says, Mockingbird is the Riddler. Okay, backstory time. So first we cut over to, I guess, the Riddler's lair. And he's meeting up with those 3 girls who attacked them last issue, 2 issues ago. I don't know. And they're basically like, hey, you said they would be pushovers. You didn't tell us that they would actually put up a fight. They were fighting for each other. And Riddler was like, oops, my bad. Oh, well, you're going to continue to do the job, though, because I still have your wives, Scandal Savage. You have to do what I say because I have all this stuff on you. And so they storm out saying like, oh, well, you're not a warlord. You better remember that. And then we see the wife, the person in the picture, is all cuddled up next to Riddler and just like, oh, she underestimates you. Everyone does. It's the way that you manage to stay safe, Riddler, is that they don't know your true power. And he's just like, don't get too dolled up here. I'm expecting company. So this is where Big Shot, they're all hopping in the van. They start driving down. And he gives the backstory. And he says, look, I used to be a detective before I looked like this. My name was Ralph Dibney. That was my wife, Sue. in the photo. We were going to this giant yacht party thing because we were trying to retrieve a stolen diamond called the India Star, and Riddler took it, and he was throwing this big unveiling party on his yacht, and he just wanted to show it off. And so I showed up there with Sue, and Sue has this thing about her. She's just irresistible. This is what drove me to her. I love her deeply. However, it also worked on Riddler. Riddler fell to her charms, even if she wasn't intending to. And as he kissed her on the hand, I looked behind and I saw, you were there, Catman. And Catman's like, yeah, I was hired as security. I was there. And he looks back at Strix and says, and I'm willing to bet that the Court of Owls was also trying to get their hands on that India Star. Am I right, Strix? And she doesn't respond, but then he points out, like, yeah, we were all on the boat. That's my guess, is that's what we all have in common, is we were all on the boat. And Ventriloquist is like, yeah, I broke in. I wanted to feel fancy on the party. And Black Alice and Porcelain are like, we just wanted to steal the diamond. That seems like the most normal thing to do. So once they got offshore, Riddler brought everybody into the main gala room, made a big show of it, and he's like, yes, everyone, check it out. I stole this. The India Star. Ooh, so amazing. However, it's not the most beautiful thing here tonight. And he goes over to Sue, gets down on one knee, and says, Sue, yeah, I will gladly give you that diamond as your engagement ring stone. Will you marry me? And then all of a sudden the lights go out before she can even respond. And as the lights go out, they come back, the diamond is stolen, and Riddler lost all of his stupid Riddler, like, oh, he's just a nuisance or whatever. He was a murderous psychopath in those moments. And he's like, anyone who tries to leave here will die. And then all of a sudden there's an explosion on the boat. It's chaos. Riddler tells Catman, hey, figure out where my diamond went, get on it. So Catman starts throwing punches. Some people just jump overboard. We see, as explosions keep on going off, Ralph and Sue get separated, and it seems that Sue gets caught up in a second explosion, and she is killed. And he's like, yeah, the boat was gone. Sue was gone, lost at sea. I don't remember anything else after that. And Catman's like, okay, but I saw her. She's not dead. And he's like, yeah, well, I didn't know that at the time. And I got really messed up. And I was in a dark place. And the Riddler blames us for whatever happened with his diamond. He figures one of us must have taken it. So put it in park. Here we are. This is the Riddler's last known place. This is where he keeps his new ride. We're going to find him. We're going to take him out. But then he hears a voice off to the side saying, Ralph. And he tears up as he sees Sue there, and he runs over, gives her a huge hug. And then immediately there's sleeping darts in the other Secret Six members' necks. And Catman's like, oh, you set us up. You sold us out there just so you could get your wife back. And he's like, yeah, sorry. And Ralph punches Catman out. Strix seems to be the only one that's still conscious, but as Catman struggles to look up, he sees Riddler standing over him with his cane and a whole bunch of Riddler goons saying, ho, 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 at long last, there is to be a wedding. Okay, all right, so I have nothing to back this up. This is entirely vibes-based, but I honestly believe that when Gail Simone wrote this issue, she thought she was only getting 6 issues, because it feels so weird to have the full explanation of everything that happened here in issue 5, and it feels so rushed. It feels like we're just throwing this out as much as possible. And then next issue will be issue 6. We can finish up the whole thing, and then the adventure will continue. But like, it doesn't feel like we're going for 12, which is what we are getting. We are getting 12 of this series. So I don't know. Do I judge a specific issue knowing how many more issues are going to come after it and how it feels like it kind of just threw away all of its mysteries all at once here? Like, what is the thing that links together the Secret Six? What is the secret? They were all on this boat, and there was a diamond, and that's it. And now we've got 7 more issues to go. I don't know. It feels kind of like cheap to me. I feel like I am missing out on something. So even if I'm only judging it on this as an issue rather than this being an issue of an overarching series, I do think it was rushed. I think art-wise, it's fine. It's okay. It was still a couple things during the cruise sequence that I think were left pretty unclear and probably could have been cleared up a little bit by the art, but I think overall, strangely enough, for this being Secret 6, I'm going to give this a 6. I think that it did overplay its hand. For something that was relying so heavily on this mystery of who is Mockingbird, how long until Ralph Dibny's identity comes out. Like, if you look at this where issue 3 is actually what the last issue is, that's where we get the identity of Mockingbird and Dibny, Big Shot, whatever you want to call him, at the same time. And it just feels so rushed. I don't know what better way to make of it. I just really wanted this to be a mystery that was more strung out. Maybe there will be more. Maybe it's not something where every card has been played, but I can't think of a single one that's left except for where is the diamond? And frankly, I don't think that's going to be hidden for very long. So yeah, 6. Wonder Woman number 43, written by Meredith Finch, art by Ian Churchill. So last issue, Strife showed up and told Donna Troy, hey, blow this popcorn stand, get out of here. And so she did. This issue picks up with Wonder Woman coming in, talking to Hera and Zola, being like, what do you mean she left? She was all up on the forgiveness train. She was trying to, but why would she just leave? It doesn't make any sense. And then Strife is literally just sitting there eating popcorn and saying like, boy, I wonder why somebody who would have to sit there and listen to you talk about forgiveness day in and day out would ever want to leave. That just doesn't make any sense at all. And she's like, Strife, do you know something about this? And you just hear the womp, womp, womp noise in the background. But she's basically saying, maybe Donna can't be redeemed. Maybe she's just is actually a monstrous murderer, and that's just who she is. And Wonder Woman's like, all right, well, clearly you've got a vested interest. I don't know why, but whatever you know, that you got to know that I don't believe that. I don't think that she is what she says she is. So, Hera, can you look in your magic pool thing that can see anybody anywhere and tell me where Donna is? And she's like, nah, we already tried that. It doesn't work. Maybe she went back to Paradise Island. Maybe that's where you should look. And she's like, nah, that doesn't make any sense. She has trauma around that place. She's going to have to go somewhere else. Strife is like, what do you care? And she's like, again, I think she's a good person, Strife. Can you butt out a little bit? And she's like, all right, well, I've got one last ace in the hole of someone who might be able to find her. So Wonder Woman flies off to New York, and we meet up with Milan. And for anybody who doesn't remember Milan, because I barely remember Milan, she is another bastard child of Zeus who is able to just see things anywhere, anytime, and he wears like a blindfold and he has maggots in his eyes. And it was during the Azarella run. So he comes up and he's like, hey, Milan, how are you doing? And he's like, hey, I'm getting the feeling you're about to ask me to see something, and that always comes with an incredible amount of pain on my side. Please don't make me do that. And she's like, what? No, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I shouldn't have asked. Never mind. I'm good. Bye. And so she starts to leave, and he's like, wait, hold on. You've always been nice. All right, I guess I can do it. And so he pulls off his blindfold and he sees that she's somewhere in London. That's about as much as we get. But he's not able to see her, just the location vaguely where she's at. And Wonder Woman's like, oh, thank you so much. You've given me so much. But like, what the hell is she doing in London? So we cut over to Donna, who's basically just giving a recap to the audience of like, who she is and what's been going on for, I guess, people who hopped on in the last 2 issues. She murdered a bunch of Amazonians. Admittedly, she was fed a bunch of lies, and she didn't know they were lies at the time, but she murdered a bunch of male-born Amazons, and that's a no-no, and she feels bad about it. So she makes her way into, I'm going to call it a bar, but it's not, I don't know. She comes in here and there's 3 women and they're the Fates. They're obviously the sisters with the thread of life and all that. The ones from the movie Hercules. And she's like, hey, sisters, I need your help. And they're like, we didn't even see you coming. That shouldn't be possible. Who are you? What's going on here? And she's like, oh, my name is Donna Troy. And they're like, okay, Donna, let's take a look. We got every single thread of every single person who's alive. We forge it over here in the fire. We weave it into the tapestry of destiny. And then when that life has come to its end, we cut it. That's how things go. That's what it is. So what do you want? And she's basically like, well, I'm not having the best time, and I'd like you to cut my thread. Can you please do that? And the sisters all look sad for a second and say, okay, real talk, we didn't make your thread. It's not in our tapestry, and we have no idea, like, what's going on with you. And she's like, what? What? I'm alive. How can I not have a thread? And it's like, I don't know, but your destiny is not in the hands of the fates. Whatever you want, whatever your quest is, you can go off and find it. And then they give her like a real cryptic thing of saying that, oh, only one can aid your quest, and in London where a sister rests. And Donna just kind of storms out like, oh, of course. All right. I was told to come here. I was told I could end my suffering. And now I found out that I'm like a freak of fate as well. This sucks. But then as she leaves, a shadowy figure sneaks into the bar and says, hey, sisters. So we cut to Wonder Woman. She's been looking through London all night. She finally makes her way to the same bar. And as she walks in, she sees that this bar has been overturned. How there has clearly been a scuffle. And there are golden threads lying everywhere. And she peeks her head in and says, nope, not this one. Never mind. And then she hears someone call out Diana, and she goes in. And she's like, oh my God, the three sisters, you've all been killed except for this last one who's barely clinging to life. And she's like, yeah, I'm also about to die. God stuff happens. And then she says, to start again, rebirth, we see a girl of clay, your answer be. And then she dies. And Wonder Woman's like, who would do such a thing? Who would cause such horrible strife? And she seriously doesn't put it together. So as she is leaving, all of a sudden she's met by this just a young girl. Like, I can't put an age on this kid, but she bumps into Wonder Woman and like smiles up like, oh, sorry, didn't see you standing there. And Wonder Woman's like, you clearly just tried to steal my lasso. It's hidden behind your back. Give it back. And she's like, oh, well, you can't blame me. It'd be worth a shiny penny on the market. And then Wonder Woman is just like talking to her, saying how dangerous this part of town is. And then a giant ass portal opens up behind her. And the girl's like, you might want to deal with that. So out comes Aegis, whatever his name is, and he's riding the big, why am I blanking on the name? Pegasus, that's the one. So he's firing off arrows at Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's blocking him, making sure it doesn't hit the kid, and she's like, if you hurt this kid, I swear to God, I will end you. And he's like, haha, you are a god of war, and yet you are concerned for the life of others. That's dumb. And he introduces himself as Aegis, because he never did that before. And he just keeps on firing off arrows until Wonder Woman flies up and just punches him in the face. And just like, if you want my power, then that's what you're going to get. And so he falls down to the ground. He plays dead for a moment as Wonder Woman approaches. And then he sits up, spins around, fires off a golden arrow. And it actually ends up hitting Wonder Woman in her shoulder. And she starts bleeding from the eyes and gives off just this menacing aura and is like, oh, congratulations, you hit your target. Hope you're ready for what comes next. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm out. This is too much. So he hops back on the Pegasus, gets through a portal, and Wonder Woman's just like, you coward, you won't get away. And she just passes out. Blood loss, I guess. Okay. My main critique, my major critique here is that we introduced Strife last issue, I think, officially, but she's always just been like hanging around. Why, after everything that's happened, is Wonder Woman like, well, it couldn't be Strife. Like, she couldn't possibly have anything. Like, clearly this is all like, are you kidding me? Like, it's the part where she leaves the thing after talking to Strife, and Strife is clearly like, well, I don't know why she could ever want to escape, but like, it definitely wasn't me. Like, are you kidding me? She may as well have been holding a giant sign that says it was me. What are you talking about? So that's just, maybe we're building to something, maybe we're going somewhere with that, but it feels like really poor writing at this point of like, clearly she's behind this to some extent. Why are you just ignoring it? Beyond that, I mean, the Aegis stuff, honestly, I forgot he was a plot. By the time he showed up at the end of this issue, I'm like, oh yeah, That's a thing that's happening. Theoretically, maybe the main thing that's happening, but I am a bit more interested in this Donna stuff because it is just a bit more interesting. Yeah, no, I wouldn't say I really enjoyed this issue. It's okay. It's just lacking on like every front. Even David Finch not being on the art. Ian Churchill does a fine job, but it's just not, the David Finch art I've been watching in this series. So I'm going to say this one's a 7. It's still good. It's still a good issue. It's just not blowing me away. And if Wonder Woman continues to be stupid, if when it's finally revealed that Strife is behind this to some extent, if she is surprised by any means, or if she says, I should have known, I will throw the book away. Like, yeah, you should have known. Robin, Son of Batman, number 3, written and art by Patrick Gleason. So last issue we had nobody joining the team. Yes, it is that confusing. This issue picks up with a flashback, I believe, of Damian fixing up some sort of ultrasonic device that when he tests it and triggers it, not only do all the bats in the cave that he's working in go crazy, but so do the man bats that are caged nearby. So he's done something that pisses off anything and sends it into a psychotic rage. He goes and he talks to some of the, I don't know what you call them, teachers, other people there to help him with his year of blood. And they're like, oh, well, you are to go to this specific location and you will take the glowing crystal off and seal their frozen cave. And it turns out it's filled with a bunch of birds called cliff swifts that are fanatical and they're blah, blah, blah. It's a whole long thing, basically just setting up what the next sequence is. And Damian's like, yeah, you talk too much. Please don't talk to me ever again. I will be gone for a week and I will have 7 more things of the Year of Blood marked off by then. Ta-ta. And so he flies off. But we see one of the guys is like, hey, you told him too much. You were saying too much. Ra's al Ghul explicitly told you not to mention, and then the guy's like, what? The Leun Darga? That's a stupid myth, and like it's totally dumb. And plus, it's not like he's ever gonna know, because Ross isn't here unless you think he's omnipotent. And then as he's basically telling this guy, like, he's a little suck up, what are you gonna do? Rat me out? Is that what you're gonna do? We see some ninjas descending behind him, and he's like, nah, I don't have to rat you out. The hand of Roz is upon you. So he gets killed. We then cut to present day in Iceland where these swifts are, and it seems like they are a people. They have bow and arrows or whatnot, but they fly on these giant birds that are the cliff swifts. And things have gone haywire. Damian is blaming nobody, saying, this is all your fault. Every time you showed up, like, why'd you have to do all this stuff? And so they're having to fight against the horde of them that are chasing after them. Goliath's just going nuts trying to fly around. And they have the crystal on their back, the crystal that he's trying to return. And they're chasing after because it's their crystal. They want it back. So Damian pulls out the little thing from before and he's like, hey, I made this to take them out before. It'll resonate with their skulls or whatever. And we don't have to worry. And then all of a sudden an arrow hits it and breaks it. And he's like, well, that's it for that. So we see Goliath is just trying to escape as best he can. Damian is putting forward a plan. He's just like, look, we're just going to give these guys the crystal. That's what they want. Like, we're just going to throw it to them midair and they will leave us alone. And nobody's like, that's a stupid plan. I've got Sonics in my suit too. I'll go ahead and use them. And so she uses her Sonics to do something to Goliath to get him to like stop panicking, I guess. And so he freaks out. He tanks it down to the ground. Damian throws the crystal, gets rid of the Swifts, so they're no longer a problem either. And as Goliath hits the ground, Damian's like, we could have been done with 3 more things if it weren't for you coming in and messing everything up over and over and over again. But you know what? That's to be expected from the daughter of a psychopath. Like, you're clearly just trying to ruin things for me. And so they, like, immediately start getting into a fight. They're throwing punches. Nobody tries using her cloaking technology. It doesn't work. Damian's like, yeah, whatever. I've seen it before. And we get some inner workings of Nobody, of, like, how her anger is, and she basically reveals that she was quote-unquote raised by her father after her mother died, but he was never really a father. He was more of an instructor, and even then, he barely gave his daughter the time of day. She learned everything by just watching him, and so she basically feels completely left out. Like, you had not only your mother teaching you all these things, but also Batman teaching you things as well. But you're a dick. Like, everyone should hate you. Why do you get to have both your parents teaching you things when I'm left out in the cold? You suck. So she ends up landing a solid hit on Damien, knocking out one of his teeth. And then Damien just starts laughing. And it takes nobody off edge just long enough for Goliath to get up, and he starts rampaging. He's just freaking out, and nobody says, oh, he's blind with rage. Damien says, no, he's hurt. Quick, give me your hand. And he basically readjusts the sonics in order to be the correct frequency to calm him down. And she's like, no, I can't do it. It's too much. He's going to kill us. And he's like, no, you can do it. You can. Here we go. 3, 2, and then it calms him down. So at that point, nobody comes over, pets Goliath as he goes to sleep, and then Damien and her just share a moment. They just chill out for a second, and they talk about whether or not they need to worry about the birds coming back. Damien's like, nah, they got their thing. It's not going to matter. And he asks, do you have a name besides nobody that I can call you? And she says, Maya. I was named after my mother. I haven't been called that in years, though, because my father did not like being reminded of my mother. And, you know, she gives more of the backstory on how she was raised with her father and how he was always out doing all these plans and missions and whatnot. And Damien's like, yeah, I get that, father with the mission, and that's normal. And she's like, sorry, I knocked out your tooth. And he's like, hey, don't worry about it. It's been loose for a while. And she's like, what, you were fighting? It got hit before? And he's like, no. She's like, why would you have a loose tooth? Oh my God, was that one of your baby teeth? Did I just knock out one of you? Oh my God, that is hilarious. And he's like, I don't see what's so funny about this. So Maya's laughing the whole way to the shop. She goes over to her ship and just like, hold on. I just wait here. I need to check on this. And she goes over and checks. She's got like 5 unread messages. It's just people calling in for nobody saying like, hey, you've gone off the grid. You had a job. You need to do this, that, and the other thing. If you want to get paid, you got to do this. And Damien hears all this and just like, oh, okay. So you have been doing hitman stuff. You have been an assassin the same way nobody was. You've been following your father's footsteps. And she's like, it's not as simple as you think it is to get out of the game like that. Like, this is who I am. This is all I was. Yeah, we're all hypocrites. And he's like, yeah, well, that's only if you accept it. So then we cut over to Talia. Talia was amnesiac and living out in the ice wild. She was approached by somebody, I think last issue, and now she's brought into this cave, and this guy's dropping marbles into a pool that she's in, and like bringing back memories. And it turns out this guy either is or is a representative thereof of the Loon Darga, the thing from before. And just like, yes, Ra's al Ghul always wanted us to stay hidden in the shadows, and he always wanted to take away our power and whatnot. But now that he's out of the way, the Loon Darga can finally come back again. So he starts sparking her memories of Damien, and just like, yes, feel your mother's love, clean, pure, fierce, say his name. And she says, Damien. And he's like, good, yes. First I will purge the mother, and then the son. I will get my hands on him and destroy him. And Talia just picks up a stalactite and bashes him over the head with it. So Loon Darg is gone, but Talia comes out now with her full memory intact. She realizes, all right, wherever the surface is, I have to find a way to Damien. And she looks up in the sky of this cave she's in, and she sees this giant ball of green fluid and calls it the Lazarus Heart. And there's a bunch of monsters nearby. She gets a sword and she just yells out her dad's name like, Roz! So I don't know, new things being added to the lore. So last thing we get is Maya and Damien talking. Damien's basically like, look, whoever that is on the other side, he thinks he's talking to your father. You can just bail. You don't have to uphold your father's legacy. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to be nobody. And she types in a message saying, I quit, sends it off, and just like, all right, This'll be the one that we do together. So we then see whoever on the other end was trying to get in contact with her gets the I quit message. We see he's got crosshairs on somebody, pulls the trigger, they just immediately blow up. And wouldn't you know it, it's Deathstroke. And he says nobody likes a quitter. So wouldn't you know it, Deathstroke doing things. It's fine. It's a solid issue. I don't know. I get the idea of doing this Year of Blood thing as the framing device of saying, okay, Damien's going to be globe-trotting. We're just going to be seeing various different places, and then whatever, that's how we get to wherever we're going. But it feels like it's not really necessary. The reason I say that is because, yes, we could have used that for the first, 2 issues to say, okay, Damien's going off to do something, and now he's in this location, and that's how he meets up with Maya. That's how he meets up with nobody. But, like, from that point on, I'm not sure it really matters that he's off doing his Year of Blood thing. Maybe we'll get somewhere else, but it doesn't feel like this Trip of Atonement is quite playing into the themes yet. Like, we're still getting started. Maybe it'll show up later, but it feels much more to me like the development here is going to be his growing friendship with Maya, in which case the atonement thing is kind of going to be in the back seat. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm totally off base. Maybe it'll actually end up being a core central tenet of this book. But as it stands right now, 3 issues in, I feel like this could have easily been told by just saying, hey, Damien heard something about this island on the League of Shadows, which is how the first issue basically opened up. So what's the harm of just continuing that, Like, it's just a bit weird, the framing device being what it is. Art-wise, though, it's great. I don't really have a problem with it. I like the humor in the book as well. So I'm going to say 6.5. It's just not quite at the 7 mark for me, but it is still a very, very well-written book. Green Lantern, The Lost Army, number 3, written by Cullen, Bunn, art by Jesús Saíz and Cliff Richards. So, last issue, we had the big reveal that, wouldn't you know it, we met up with Relic. We're in the past, baby. So, this issue picks up, and the whole Corps has got their rings aimed at Relic, and they're like, all right, everybody, get ready, we're going to do some stuff. And he's like, whoa, guys, hey, I'm a scientist. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to study you. My drones are just scanning you, like doing whatever. And guys are like, no, look, if you want to study us or whatever, that's fine. But like, get your bugs out of my face. And he's like, right, sorry. I'm got a little bit of the tism. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry. I've just never encountered creatures like you before. And everyone switches over to their telepathic link because they don't want to have to talk in front of him. And it's here that we get the full breakdown for anyone who doesn't remember the Lights Out event. There was an emotional reservoir. All of the light of the universe exists beyond the source wall, and Relic came from the universe before ours, and their reservoir went kaput, and therefore the universe just died. And then our universe came along, and we apparently did the exact same thing, except we managed to refill the reservoir. So that's the event, but everyone's just like, okay, fine, fair. How is he here? What he's not big anymore. He's not like towering, and also, like, wasn't he sealed away? That should have been a whole thing, right? And John immediately points out, like, look, we met a young Krona. We're meeting Relic. We're in the past. We're in the universe before ours. I have no idea how that happened, but like, we got to roll with it. And Relic's like, you guys seem lost. Do you need some help? You want to come? My ship's over there. Come on, come over to my van. So everyone's like, okay, look, I don't trust that guy. He's a villain, first and foremost. He got a Villain's Month issue, so we can't trust him at all. But John's just like, look, we just got to stay alert. Like, we don't know what point of his timeline we're in. Maybe we're at like the end of their universe. We just got to figure out what's up. And the one that's able to adapt like empathically starts turning into him. And he's like, no, there's something different in him. He's not as cruel as he was. There's hope still within him. And John's like, all right, whatever. We've met up with 2 of the Corps' greatest enemies. We got to deal with this. So they go over to Relic's vessel, and he's just like, look, it's dangerous out there. There's some pirates. light pirates, you don't want to be on their bad side, but I'm hoping that you guys could help me understand how you control light, because that's crazy. And guys, like, you do understand we are just destroying the timeline right now, right? Like, this is, we're doing a whole Biff Tannen timeline thing when we go back to the present. And John's just like, look, we just got to do what we can to control our footprint. And we get one of those cutaways back to when he was in the military. We see that they're getting information from some local about where the insurgents are. And one of the people in his crew is like, yeah, this guy's going to be leading us into a trap. We shouldn't trust anything as it. We should kill this guy right now. And John's like, whoa, hey, now hold on. He believes in what we're doing here. We're trying to help. And the crewmate's just like, hey, the reason I know that you're just talking BS and that you don't actually trust this guy is because you're still wearing your helmet the same as all the rest of us. You still think that this guy's going to be able to set off a bomb. And John takes off his helmet and says, happy now? And he's like, no, because now you're just an idiot. How dare you trust these people? So we then go back into Relic's ship, and Relic is like, anybody need injuries healed up? I got some medic drones. And John's just like, okay, yeah, sure. And he's just like, yeah, so everybody I've ever met wielding the light, and there's like a bunch of pirates and stuff nearby, it's a whole thing, they've always used these like staffs and spears and whatever else. And, you know, I've gotten a good read on that, not great, but you guys are using rings. That's new. Can I check those out? And Cronus is just like, don't expect them to tell you anything about them. Like, they are very secretive about their powers and whatnot. And he's just like, all right, well, you know, some people in my culture consider me to be a relic. And like the audience just kind of looks at each other for a second. And he's like, yeah, because I'm trying to drag them back to a, as they consider it, more uncivilized time. And then he explains how the light reservoirs, blah, blah, blah. He believes that their universe is on the downswing. And the event is called the dimming, as they are running out of light energy. And he's like, yeah, and right now I'm searching for the reservoir. I'm searching on how to save the universe. And I didn't expect you guys to show up. So who are you guys? And John just telepathically turns to everybody else and says, we're going to have to lie to him. I need you all to run with me on this, okay? And he turns over to Relic and says, we're from your future, and we're here to help you do that thing you want to do. But in order to do that, we need you to hook us up with the rest of our team because they went missing. So can you do that? And Relic's like, oh, you're from my, that means it must be successful. My theories are correct. Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. You can help me prevent the disaster. Yeah, sure. I'll put in a little tracker thing to search for other ring-like items. We'll find your team. This is great. I'm so happy. This is literally the best thing that ever happened to me. And all the teams look at each other like, oh, we might have gone a bit too far on that one. And Guy tells John, hey, let's step into the back room and have a little whisper chat, all right? And he's like, well, we have a telepathic link. Why don't you just use the telepathic link? And Guy's like, maybe I want to use my big boy words. All right, John? And so he's basically like, all right, look, I get it. Just tell me what you need to tell me. And Guy basically chews him out to being like, what the hell was that? Like, A, you didn't even let anyone else weigh in on it. You just made the judgment call yourself of, like, just lying to this dude. And B, that lie came like so naturally to you, like you just spewed it off so much. Like, I don't know, how do I even like know you anymore? The John I know would never do that. And John's like, oh, I'm sorry, here, I thought I was pulling a page out of your book. I thought that I was doing something that would have been great with you. And the guy's like, I will knock you out right now, do not think I will not. And he basically calls him out saying like, look, part of the War of Light thing, part of the lights out of them was us realizing that we as a core were causing the end of the universe. We are doing the same to this universe. We don't know how close they are to going out. Like, and now you're saying that we could save them? Like, and it's all for our own gain? Like, what if we could actually save them? Krona's here. That's something we didn't have before. Like, maybe there's a chance we could do it. And John's like, come on, that's not going to work. And he's like, how do you know? Should we at least try it? And John's like, no, because if by some miracle we do actually save this universe, our universe never gets made. That's our priority. That's what we got to get back to. So that's what we're doing. And all of a sudden there's a big wha-boom, and Relic looks out and he's like, oh no, there are some light pirates. Oh geez, that's a bit. Would you guys mind going out and fighting them? That really been. I don't got no guns on this ship. And John's like, all right, look, Guy, are you going to be cool with using a little bit of light? And he's like, I swear to God, man, I'll knock you out. Don't think I won't. So they all make their way out of the ship. they tell Cronus to stay put, and he's like, where would I go? And he's like, fair enough. So they make their way out. They start fighting against the light pirates and their little star tessellated ships. And Krona and Relic watch the fights, and Krona's like, so do you think they can win? And Relic's like, no, I don't think so. He's like, okay, but you still let them go out there without warning? And he's like, yeah, I wanted to watch them fight. Like, look, I'm very curious in how their rings work, but I have a lot more curiosity in how the light pirates' weapons work. And we get to see, I think it's Aricia, one of her ring is locked onto by one of the light pirates, and it just starts siphoning off power just super quick. It's like 125%, 90, 70, 50, 25, and then all of a sudden her ring is completely dead and she's just left gasping for air out in space. And all the narration is like, what did Relic call it? The War of Dwindling Light? Well, in every war there are casualties. So Aricia's dead. No, I'm sure she isn't. We're definitely not going to let that. That's a character back from like the 80s. We're not going to let that one go. So, how do I feel about it? I think it's fine for an issue. I like the implications that we're going for here of John having to make these tough calls. It feels like that's going to be the point of these flashbacks, is that John may have made some poor calls before, but it was the calls that he felt had to be made. And obviously we could go to that whole thing of John allowing a planet to blow up. We already covered that over in Green Lantern Corps. It's a whole thing. But like, I think that it does well for his character that in these horrific moments where they're just trying to survive, there's going to be some tough calls made. And I like the fact that they're putting John the soldier in as basically the scapegoat, the guy who has to make those calls, even if the rest of the crew thinks they are horrific. And I'm curious to see how far he is willing to go over the course of this. Is he basically going to be directly responsible for the death of the previous universe? And that would be certainly something, to say the least. Beyond that, my only major criticism is I think they spent a little bit too much time explaining Relic's deal. Maybe that's just because me personally reading the other Green Lantern book where Relic is also present, and also having read his original event to begin with, it just feels a little bit too in-depth for what they needed here. But who knows, maybe as we get into the next 2 issues of this book or so, it's going to be, they only brought up the necessary things. Like the fact that they were talking about spears rather than rings feels like a completely pointless thing to bring up, but who knows, maybe it'll be something that's actually important. So I'm still going to give this one benefit of the doubt. I think it's still a very well done issue. I'm going to say 7, just 7. It's almost at the 0.5, but I'm just going to say 7. And yeah, it's getting me a little bit more with each and every issue, not in so much as the mystery of it, of like, where are we, what's going on, but the mystery of how did we get here and how do we get back? Even if the how do we get here doesn't even matter, I'm sure we'll get the explanation, but I am much more curious in how are they going to get back to their own universe. And I think there's a lot of hard choices to be made along the way of getting to that goal. Harley Quinn Power Girl number 3, written by Amanda Conner, Jimmy Palmiotti, and Justin Gray. Art by Stéphane Roux, Elliot Fernandez, and Moritat. Some of those are probably only for the little dream sequence we get, because that's just a recurring motif now. So we open up with, I think, a Star Trek thing, where he's basically doing like Stardate, who are flying through this galaxy looking for Lustox, and we're trying to rescue Vartox from Oreth Odiox, and Harley's like, there's a lot of X's up in space. It's a weird naming scheme. But she's basically saying like, yeah, we're looking for a teleportation ring, and just recapping what all we've been doing in this story up till now. And she says that she's monologuing in her Hunter S. Thompson voice, which comes into play. So Power Girl calls her out for it and says like, yeah, stop what you're doing. It's weird. And she's like, oh, all right, whatever. So they arrive on the Lustox or whatever, which is a planet that the canyons are carved with all of these very sexualized statues. And Power Girl's like, oh my God, this is horrific. Like, who carved all these things? And turns out that Vartox did so during his celibacy trials, where he spent 50 years not engaging in the physical flesh, and he needed some sort of outlet. And Harley's like, oh yeah, that's like when back in school, and I filled up an entire notebook just full of, and then it's censored, but it's clearly supposed to be dicks. So all of a sudden, they start getting attacked. Harley goes out immediately with her light sledgehammer and jetpack and just starts swinging away. Power Girl joins in soon afterwards, saying that they're outnumbered. We see the ex-GF squad is like, we should go out there and help, right? And they're like, well, no, our main job is Vartox. We're going after him. We can't risk getting hurt before then. But the one male member, Cherub, I don't know, he says, all right, whatever, you guys stay in, I'm gonna go out there and actually fight. So he hops in his ship out there, and we see that there's a big portal that all of them are coming through, and he's like, hey, Cherub to Power Girl, I got a plan. I'm gonna eject in 3 seconds, you just gotta catch me. And so he ejects out, and the ship continues to fly towards the portal and then explodes. And he's like, yeah, great, cool, we took him out. And they're like, what happened to the rest of the squad? And they're like, they are going to find Vartox, but like, could you give me a lift? I kind of blew up my ship. So they hop back onto the ship that they were on, and as they get onto it, they realize that the ship is full of this noxious gas. And all the border panels get weird, and we cut over to the guy who's driving, whatever his name is. I don't think they even name him. And it's weed. We're doing a weed thing, and Harley even points out, like, this happens like every other issue in my book. It's kind of a normal thing for me. So we do a naked lunch thing. I don't know, like, how to explain it. We do a thing where they're just driving down a convertible, and Harley's saying, oh yeah, we're doing all that, and Power Girl's like, I don't want to be part of this. Can we just get back to the main story? I want to progress the plot. And Harley's like, nah, you just got to lean into it. Like, really do something crazy during these segments. And Power Girl's like, no, look, I'm just going to talk to the guy here. Hey, guy, why does Vartox like me? I've literally never met the guy. And it's just like, oh, what? You've spent all this time with you. He was your beloved. And it's like, well, no, it is a multiverse. It was probably a different Earth's version of me. And then I couldn't tell you who this guy is. I'm assuming it's Hunter S. Thompson. They come across him out in the desert, and he basically is like, oh, you're never going to get anywhere until you're out from under the dome. And then Power Girl's like, all right, I've had enough. Let's get this plot rolling. We're done with the montage. Let's get out of here. You've had your little art piece. Back to the main plot. And so they do. They just go back to the main plot. And as they arrive on the planet, they say, all right, this is where Vartox was imprisoned. And the moment they get down on the ground, Harley's like, well, this is going to be so easy, we're going to have to make up our own challenge here. And then all of a sudden, there's a laser beam from under the ground. It knocks out one of the engines to the ships, causes it to start filling up with water, because I guess they land in some sort of reservoir or lake. And Power Girl has to fly outside the ship, lift it back up, set it on the dry land. And they say, hey, where's that Cherub guy? We haven't heard from him in a minute or two. And it turns out he was sitting on the toilet, and that happened to be where the laser blast shot through. So Cherub is dead. And we then see Vartox shows up, and he says, yes, and you too will wish that you would have died sitting on the commode. And Harley's immediately infatuated by this guy, loves the way he looks. Power Girl's like, I would never, in any universe, have dated that. And then Vartox basically, he's got glowing eyes, he's speaking with a weird speech bubble. He's obviously possessed, but nobody else seems to pick up on that, because even the guy's like, he would never willingly harm a woman that he's pleasured before. I mean, depending on your definition of harm. So he's got laser eyes, he tries blasting them again, and Harley's like, hey, wait a minute, I've got a plan, and starts baiting him to shoot at her. She dodges around the battlefield so that the laser blasts on the ground carve out a pictograph of a butt. And she's like, what do you think of that? And everyone's like, what are we looking at? And she's like, it's a butt. Do you not have butts in space? And he's like, I don't care much for that. And at that point, Harley's about to go in for the fight, comments on his porn stash, and Power Girl just punches him halfway across the planet. So at that point, she flies over, says, hey, let's talk this out. Let's work out our differences. And it's just a lot of speech bubbles back and forth with him basically saying, I'm not going to let you talk because you're clearly going to be very good at it, and we can't have you using your superior intellect against me. And she's like, I think that's a compliment. Thank you. And he's like, yeah, whatever. So at that point, he comments on how the only reason that they're fighting is because of some deep-seated unresolved issues he has with his mother. And she's like, really? And she's blindsided just long enough for him to use his laser vision, and it looks like she's in pain. End of issue. What am I reading this book for? What am I reading this book for? What am I doing with my life? It's not that I think it's a horrible book. Like, I've read a lot of books that I think are genuinely just poorly written. That is not what this is. This is well enough written for a completely different type of person. Like, I read this and I think this was such, like, there are so many people who are dying to get into the comics industry, who have that story that they're like, if I could get access to the Static Shock IP, it would be perfect. It fits that character so perfectly. And instead, these Amanda Conner, Jimmy Palmiotti, and Justin Gray managed to get 6 issues to do whatever the hell they feel like because, yeah, it's got Harley Quinn on it. And Harley Quinn literally cannot not sell. I'm sick of the montages. And yes, you're poking fun at it now. You're saying, oh, yeah, it's a montage in like every one of her books. Oh, ha, 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 ha. Good job. You did it. You managed to literally say in this issue how it feels like filler. Just don't publish the book if you don't have a book. If there's anybody who has read this, or you know what, I'm going to include the main Harley book as well. If there's anybody who was reading the main Harley book or this Harley book at the time of release, what were you getting out of it? What? Was it the butts? Was that it? Was it the butts? There's other ways to see butts. I'm going to say 4.5. It's, again, I'm probably being overly harsh on it. It's not like it is actually a horribly written or drawn book, but like, I can only take so much. This is just subjectively, I have to rate it, and like, I did not enjoy my time reading this. It felt like an utter waste to me. So yeah, 4.5. Black Canary number 3, written by Brendan Fletcher, art by Annie Wu. Last issue we had the reveal that one of the people who was stalking Black Canary and the rest of her group and trying to attack them was actually the ex-husband. It was actually Kurt. Wow. This issue, I'm not gonna lie, this issue has like zero meat on its bones. So the internals of this is that we are cutting between a on the road fight where they're like, we're fighting on the vans and we're fighting on the bus and all that, and them actually being at the concert that they are making their way to during all this. And like, we get Heathcliff popping up saying, hey, we were told that like by the festival we got to be there in 20 minutes or else they're going to give our spot to somebody else. And like, meanwhile, Black Canary is fighting off a bunch of people with tasers and whatnot, and she's like, oh, don't worry, we'll make it. And it intercuts with the concert and all that, showing that of course they did make it. But really all this is just a super extended fight scene where Black Canary is going through trying to fight all them off. Some of them come up to the edge of the bus, and that's when the people inside, like, what's her name? I really don't know these people that well. Byron, and there's one other one, Paloma. They're kicking ass, taking names, trying to take out these people. Meanwhile, Heathcliff's just kind of yelling in the background like, oh God, what's happening? So they're managing to take out some of these people. As Heathcliff takes Ditto into the back of the bus, we see that black goo stuff is leaking in through the windows. As Canary's on top, taking out a few extra people. Paloma, has a gun and is also taking out some of the other vans. So Black Canary hops onto a motorcycle and falls back to take out one of the trucks. We then cut over to one of the men is bound and gagged. They managed to take him and get him all tied up in the back of the van, and that's where we see the black goo starts overtaking him and just starts attacking him. Paloma gets in with the gun. and starts firing at it. Canary goes back to the van where Kurt is and holds him at gunpoint and says, like, hey, man, we could have just asked for a divorce. Would have been less painful than what's about to happen here. And he's like, whoa, hold on. Just listen. We are trying to save your people. And she's like, when did we ever need to be saved? And he's like, look, the little girl, she's not who you think she is. She's not even from this world. There's a whole bunch of people trying to get to her and other things as well. And she's like, how do you know all this? Like, what's your interest in her? Is this some sort of military intel? What's up? And she's realizes, like, oh, the military wants her too. Everybody wants this girl. And he's like, look, she's in danger. Your friends right now, they're inside the tour bus. We have to help them. So Kurt hops on a motorcycle with Canary, drives back up to the bus as Paloma runs out of bullets. And as they realize this is probably it for them and the goo monster starts attacking, that's where Canary jumps in. Kurt shuffles everybody away so that Canary can do her cry, and they blast it straight out through the side of the van. So Canary introduces Kurt and is like, yep, this is Kurt. Everybody, this is Black Canary. And they arrive at the festival and do their performance. So after that's done, she's signing autographs. Kurt taps her on the shoulder. She's ready to flip him over the table. It's just like, don't touch me like that. It's messing with me. So they go back into a dressing room, and Kurt basically does the whole explanation of just like, look, I didn't intend to ever see you again. I think it was End of Birds of Prey where we last met, and like I was in a coma and I didn't remember anything about you. And she's like, yeah, you didn't remember anything. So like, why do you care about this now? What is all this about? And he's like, I learned some other stuff. And we get a flashback seeing him watching some old tapes and seeing how the Kurt in the tape clearly was all doughy-eyed over Dinah, and so that clearly stirred something in him. And what they basically reveal here is that Ditto, however she came from, whatever she did, she had experiments done to her. She has some sort of genetic whatever. And it turns out that the ability that Dinah has to use her canary cry comes from Ditto. She is the source of Dinah's powers, which is why it feels so familiar every time Dinah's doing her thing. So at that point, Dinah's like, okay, all right, look, stay right there. I want you to tell me more. But she hears her name being called from outside. So she goes out to check what's up. Byron's yelling loud, like, Ditto's gone. She's not here anymore. I don't know what happened to her. So we then get a cut later on the road inside a car. Ditto's just sitting in the passenger seat as Bo Maeve, the previous singer for the band, has apparently kidnapped Ditto. And she's like, haha, now that I've got you, nothing's going to stand in my way. Black Canary fans, watch out. You're about to meet Bo Maeve. And that's the issue. So, like, I can't overstate this book is like 16 pages. It's barely anything. And I have no idea why it is so lightweight. I checked. I tried to make sure that it wasn't something just in the trade paperback, like maybe there was a backup or something. No, that was the issue. There was a little bit of back matter, but it was all like ads and stuff like that. It wasn't anything for the story. So, like, I think this was a $2.99 book. It might have been a $3.99, but I think it was a $2.99. And frankly, I would have felt completely ripped off if this was $2.99 and this is all I got. It's not that it's bad. It's got a good flow to it. I like the way the action is intercut with the concert, and it adds this sort of frenetic energy going to the whole thing. And especially with Eddy Wu's art style, it just really does work there. But like, plot-wise, this was nothing. There was nothing going on. It was an extended action scene, and then the reveal of, oh, Ditto's responsible for the powers, and also she's gone. And like, that's not an issue. That's not enough to make an issue work. So, I mean, it's still a decent enough time. I'd probably give it a 7, but like, I was so surprised when we reached the end, because it's not even like it felt short. I counted the pages. It was short, and I don't know how they managed to get away with that. So, yeah, I'll probably actually lower it down to a 6.5, but if it were normal length, I think it would get the 7. I just don't understand why. It's baffling to me. Superman Wonder Woman number 20, written by Peter J. Tomasi, art by Doug Mahnke. So last issue, Superman went to the White House, and he walked in, and He wants to talk to the president. This issue picks up and shows after he knocked out the Secret Service agents. Wouldn't you know it? They knew Superman was coming, and they didn't just leave the president in the Oval Office. Instead, behind the desk is Steve Trevor, who's like, yeah, of course you're not going to talk to... You're a crazy man. Why would I let you talk to them? So we get intercut. Literally every other panel is switching between what is Superman doing and what is Wonder Woman doing. I'm going to focus on the Superman stuff first, but it is a constant intercutting. So we open up with Superman being like, hey, look, Steve, I really don't have time for this. I want to talk to the president. And he's like, yeah, well, we've got security a little amped up because you dropped that bombshell about your identity, and that's not really something we know what to do with. And Superman's like, well, it seems like you messed around with literally everyone I care about in Smallville, and that was a bad move. And he's like, look, you forced our hand. You made things very unclear about where we stand. So sorry about that. And he basically calls him out, Steve, of like, you're supposed to be the Justice League liaison. Like, Argus is something of like uniting superhumans. I don't know. You're not really standing up to your side of the thing here, despite the fact that I had the best intentions. And Steve's like, look, I helped you. Like, we fought against this crime syndicate and all that sort of stuff. I really was on your side. But first and foremost, my allegiance is to the country. And the biggest problem with you revealing yourself, which, again, they keep saying he revealed himself even though he didn't. But regardless, with the Daily Planet revealing you, is that everyone assumed, because you didn't wear a mask, that this was your full-time thing. And it's not so much that you had a secret identity, but it's the fact that you presented yourself as Superman alone. Superman only. Like Flash, Green Lantern, all the people who wear a mask, we trust them a little more now because they at least are normal people, or at least they seem to be normal people, under the mask. Like, the superhero is the mask, but people like you, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, the fact that you don't feel like you have to hide who you are behind a mask makes us think, what else do you feel like what else is just hidden from our plain view? What else are we missing? And so that's something that, like, we don't like in American society, I guess. And Superman's just like, okay, how about this? Why not, like, really just tear this whole thing apart? All right, let's get down to basics. I was born and raised in Kansas. I went to church. I played football. Like, all of that stuff happened, and I was always this guy, even when I was doing the most basic human things, because I was always listening to help people. And, like, it doesn't make a difference whether or not I'm wearing a Superman S or not. I'm always doing that stuff. And he calls Steve out. He's like, do you wear your uniform to bed? What about in the shower? And Trevor's like, no, of course not. And he's like, okay. And when you go to sleep, do you, like, actually fall asleep every night? And he's like, yeah. And Superman's like, cool. I don't. I close my eyes, but I still hear everything going on in the entire world. I never stop being Superman, even I never have ever before this. And at this point, Obama comes out. I wish I could say it's like, oh no, it's the DC equivalent of Obama. No, it's Obama. The Secret Service is saying, Mr. President, we can't, like, you got to come back. And he's like, no, I want to talk to this man right now. I'm not going to keep doing an Obama impression, but he's like, look, Superman, let's walk and talk. Let's do a West Wing. So they go out onto the South Lawn, and he's like, look, I'm sorry, we had to do some stuff until we figure out where you stood and all that. It's for the best interest in the country. And Superman's like, I really don't understand what you're saying there. Like, I've done so much for not just this country, but the world. I feel like I've earned a couple brownie points. And Obama's just like, no, look, I get it. I understand what you're saying, but, like, this isn't even about what I want to do. This is about what, like, the American people need to see happen in order for us to, like, be able to move forward here. We have people scared that superheroes aren't who they say they are. And I promise you, though, no harm is going to come to any of your friends or family or anything like that. We will get them released as soon as we get our questions answered. Like, that is it. And as they're about to walk back inside, Parasite shows up, and he's like, oh, hey, Superman, I want to go, I'm going to eat you. And Superman now has to fight Parasite as he's defending Obama. So the fight continues, but this is where I'm going to go back and I'm going to do Wonder Woman's bit. So we see it's called Salvation Technology Emergency Evaluation Laboratory, which is obviously Steel, but not John Henry Iron Steel, just a place called Steel somewhere in Virginia. And we see that they are either building or have built a replica of Clark's house. They also have a bunch of like the caskets that they dug up and whatnot, and they show every one of Clark's friends, even people he barely relates to, have been captured and are awaiting questioning. Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Lana Lang, Steele, Perry White, and Cat Grant, along with 2 Smallville residents that I don't frankly know the names of. So as they're all sitting there and waiting, Wonder Woman comes in, busts down the door, and literally just takes out all the guards, starts breaking everything apart, and tells everyone, hey, everyone, stand away from the glass. I'm going to punch it. And so she punches the glass, and they all start getting free. During all that, she's saying, like, look, Clark's off doing things his way, I'm doing things my way, and my way is we need to get all of your guys' truths out there. So as Superman's fighting against Parasite, we see everyone's being basically interviewed, and they're, Jimmy's saying like, yeah, no, he told me first and all that, but, it does put a little bit of aspersions on our early relationship. Perry White's just blanket upset. He's like, I've been all about truth in my paper, and this was under my nose the whole time. Smallville guy is like, yeah, there's wonder and magic all around us, and you guys just want to tear it down. Lana is all positive to Superman, but does have a little bit of saying, like, he should have been able to save my parents. Steele is like, yeah, no, the fact that we've all been kidnapped means that he was totally right to have a secret identity. Y'all are crazy. And the other Smallville person, who I guess was his math teacher, is like, I finally understood why he was always running off to the bathroom in the middle of class. And then Cat Grant's also saying she's into Superman / Clark. So we cut back over to the fight with Parasite, and Parasite's like, okay, hold on, I landed a few hits on you and I barely got anything out. What happened to your powers, Superman? This sucks. You suck. And then all of a sudden he gets taken down with a little electric shock or something, and we see a Secret Service agent like, sorry, yeah, we didn't know how the Superman thing was going to go when you were hiding, Mr. President, so I called over to the Suicide Squad and borrowed their Parasite, but he got free. Sorry. And Obama's like, okay, please don't cause another international incident with Superman. For the love of Christ, Superman, you gotta believe me like I didn't know. He's like, whatever. It's fine. It's cool. I get it. But, like, where are my friends? And they give him the latitude, longitude, and Superman goes jumping away. And the final page is Wonder Woman saying, okay, one more interview left. Are you ready, Lois Lane? And Lois says, yeah, all right, let's get it over with. And we see that she's tied up in the lasso of truth as all the other people were before her. So, yeah, all right. I like it so much in concept. If you, like, write down everything that happened, script-wise, like, I like it. I like the fact that Superman's just kind of justifying, like, here's why it shouldn't be a big deal to begin with. And even if you see it as a big deal, you have far overstepped your bounds. And then Wonder Woman going in and saying, like, not only am I going to break them out, but I'm going to take the most direct route. I'm going to use the lasso, which everyone can agree only tells the truth. And then we're going to get the truth out of them. It is the best way to get the stories out there. And there's no questioning of, like, oh, are they telling the whole story? I like everything going on there. It's the Obama bit. That's the part that's weird to me. I don't know. I feel like I'm so used to the comic universe is always having a fake president, always having this, like, oh, it's Senator Malhooms, like someone who clearly doesn't actually exist, but is representative of the office that they're supposed to be in. The fact that it is Obama, and I think it's two things. One, they never actually say President Obama. They only say Mr. President. And it fits in context, but, like, it's so clearly Obama that I'm sitting there like, it feels uncanny. It feels like I'm watching, like, something that was a fanfic or something. I don't even know how best to explain it, but it doesn't feel like it's in the continuity. It feels like this is something that is written very specifically of a time, and because it's Obama, it's taken out of the continuity and put into the over there sort of stuff. Again, it's such a little nitpick, but it really did affect me because it's half the issue, is following Superman talking to Obama. It's just weird. Like, it works for Dark Knight Rises in this alternate timeline where Reagan's, like, just a consistent thing, but, like, it doesn't work here because it's just an inline continuity thing. So, I mean, I still think it's a good issue. I think the art is very well done. It's just the Obama bit. And so I'm going to say 7. It's good. I just don't know how best to explain my tiny little hang up with this, which is, please don't date your books as strongly as you are. I want this to be like an evergreen sort of thing. I'm reading this 10 years later, and the fact that it's Obama makes me sad more than anything else. But whatever. 7. Dr. Fate number 3, written by Paul Levitz, art by Sonny, Liew. Last issue, we had Khalid fighting against a bunch of these dogs being controlled by Anubis or whatever. I said that the issue ended with the healing ability, with him getting healed from a bite, and it just kind of ended. What I failed to notice was in the background, there was a giant flood, like tidal wave, coming down this city street. So this issue picks up with the tidal wave hitting, and he's oddly nonchalant about it. He's like, oh man, wow, it's enough to sweep cars up and whatnot, but like, this is inconvenient. And so he swims over, grabs hold of the helmet, and he's like, well, it must have something to do with the helmet. Like, it's all of this crazy stuff happening ever since I saw it. It must have to do with that. So he puts it back on again, and he's now able to see this big ball of energy that's pushing the water inland. And like some power lines and stuff like that are about to land on him. He blasts it out of the way. And he's like, all right, whatever here doesn't like me, too bad. So he takes and he basically pushes all of the water back out of the city, but it seems to exhaust his magical battery or whatever. And he falls down to the ground. We cut over to the hospital where his dad is being treated. And his mom is just like hanging up pictures and whatever else. He's like, oh yeah, I brought you your favorite photo to encourage you to see again. And his dad's just basically like, I gave up being a professional when I left Egypt. And like, now I can't even be a cab driver. Who's ever heard of a blind cab driver? Like, this sucks. Everything sucks. And the mother's just like, look, I told you I'd love you no matter what. And you went blind and now you don't have to see me get all gray and saggy. Everything's great. And he's just like, look, I am truly afraid for our future, and like I don't know what all is going on here, but something very old and very evil is at work, and he cries a tear of blood out from under his bandages. So we cut to Anubis or his dog or whatever like that, and he's just like, all right, look, he can push whatever waves he wants back out in the ocean, but I still got my own stuff to do with, and I'm going to drown the world and send it back before the age of machines. However, this one machine might be pretty useful to me. So he takes this shipping container, huge boat, and just starts plowing it through the streets of Manhattan. Just straight up through the streets. And Dr. Fate's like, okay, hold on. This is, even if I'm dreaming, this seems a little bit extreme. So I better take care of this. So he flies in and he starts saving people that are in the way. And he's like, come, fate has been kind to you today. But his internal monologue's like, I don't think I said that. Is the helmet making me say things? Is the helmet in control of me? What is going on here? But he puts it to the back of his head and he goes up to the ship and he's like, whatever possesses you, be gone. And it doesn't work. It just continues moving forward. He's like, all right, fine, whatever. I'll actually use some power for it. And so he starts zapping the ship as best he can. He starts running out of energy because he's barely keeping it together. But he senses there's some other sort of energy coming from underground. So he funnels that up into him and basically explodes the ship. And some time passes. They don't say specifically what, but it's now, I guess, the next day. We see Aquila, who seems familiar, but I don't know if it's been established in this book, is sitting down with Khalid's mom, and she's just coming to check in. She's like, yeah, no, all that craziness, it was like 5 blocks away. We didn't see any of it. But Khalid comes down. He's exhausted. He's pouring himself a cup of coffee, and the mom's like, oh, hey, what, are you planning on going back to sleep? What's going on? And Aquila's just like, hey, look, I wanted to let you know that we're doing a protest down at the embassy tonight. It's going to be super cool. And there were all these stray cats by my house when it started raining, and one of them reminded me of Puck. And Khalid's like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go back to bed. And she's like, oh, by the way, are you ready to dump Shia for a proper girl yet? And he's like, get out of here. And he just closes the door on her. So we cut over to Battery Park where Anubis is talking to all the I don't know, stray dogs. Like, they're listening, which makes me think they're his, like, creatures, things bound to his will, but, like, they just look like normal dogs. So he ends up zapping a cat, and he's saying, look, find me the mortal in which the servant of Thoth resides, and then keep letting the rains come down. So helicopters flying overhead as Khalid is walking to wherever he's going to, and it's saying, oh, evacuate, you're in the evacuation zones, the rains are coming down, flash floods, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah. For this part of town, we just get a call from a helicopter. In Manhattan, I'm sure they're knocking and saying, oh, could you please come with us, sir and or ma'am? But as he's walking, he's like, I still just can't make any sense of this. It really isn't making any, like, a couple months ago, I was just a college kid. I really don't get what's going on. He pulls the helmet out of his bag and he starts talking to it, and he's like, all right, tell me who you are. And the helmet's like, oh, I am Nabu. I am the wives' servant of Thoth, and now so are you. Serve him well. And that's all he gets. And Khalid's like, all right, whatever. So he puts back on the helmet. And he starts trying to figure it out. He starts trying to, like, logic out how the powers work. He's like, okay, the power flows from natural forces like wind, electrical energy, stuff like that. So maybe that's could let me actually, like, turn the tide. And so he starts pushing the water back away again. And he's like, Nabu, how is this supposed to work? And there's no answer. And he's like, all right, well, back. And he expels some more energy. And it seems like it's working, but he loses control. And a giant wave comes, topples him down, and just starts, like, throwing him around a lot, to the point where it throws him up into the air, and he ends up colliding with the helicopter, who starts losing control, starts plummeting down towards the ground, and Khalid's like, okay, hold on, all right, I'm steady again, I'm flying. I couldn't save the plane in, like, the first or second issue, but I can definitely do this now. And so he uses his energy to guide the helicopter back down gently to the ground, lands it, and he's like, yes, all right, starting to get control, starting to figure this out. So the helicopter pilots get out, and they're like, what the hell was that? Was that a superhero? What? It was a Rocketeer? What's going on here? So Khalid ends up crashing at a children's playground, and he's like, okay, I'm still good. I feel aching everywhere, but, like, I'm not broken. So maybe it does have some healing power. Maybe I can use the healing power on others. That would be great for an aspiring doctor, but the helmet ain't going to tell me shit. So what the hell do I know? And he takes off the helmet and he looks at it again. And he's like, seriously, do you just talk when you want to? I don't know how you expect me to do all this. I'm seriously just a kid. And he just sits for a minute and he's like, okay, so what is being asked of me? I have to find this dog thing and stop the world from being drowned, and also make it to the school bus by 9. It's all right. I'm saved by the bell. So he realizes he's looking at the helmet that, like, oh crap, I didn't text my girlfriend last night to say goodnight. She's going to be so pissed. And so he texts her back saying, sorry, I was busy saving the world. And that's the end of that. It does feel like the end of an arc. It's a mini arc. It's a tiny little, but it's the setup. I think that collectively we were saying, okay, he's got the helmet now. He accepted the call. Even if he doesn't know what he's doing, he realizes that he's not dreaming. It is a real thing that's happening, and he's starting to try to work through the powers. I will say, though, it doesn't feel like anything was accomplished. Like, I know it's a setup arc, but, like, it doesn't feel like there was even an arc, if I'm putting it gently here. Like, this feels like all the pieces were moved on the board, but we have yet to actually move a piece forward. It's all been set up. So, like, getting all these characters into the places they were, having the dad go blind, it feels like that was just supposed to set up the status quo. Maybe we'll undo that eventually, but as we're 3 issues deep now and it still feels like we haven't done anything, I think we're finally making that turning point. I think we're finally going to get somewhere in the next issue or so, but it's taking its time. So I think I'm going to say this one's probably... I'll say a 6.5. I can't justify the 7 on this one because it just feels like we've been spinning our wheels a bit for the last 2 issues. And Dr. Fate is such a underutilized character, I feel like, where you could do so many cool, amazing, bombastic things with them. And I'm sure we're building up to that. But as for these 3 issues, it just doesn't feel like there was really a draw, you know? I think that if I were reading this just on my own without the context of the show, if I got to this issue and this is what happened, I probably would have dropped it. I would have said not enough is happening, and then maybe if I hear some good things, I would go back to it, but I don't think I would have continued at this point. But here's hoping we get to bigger things. 6.5 for now. Martian Manhunter number 3, written by Rob Williams, art by Eddy Barrows. So last issue we had Martian Manhunter basically sacrificing himself, saying, yeah, no, don't want to be doing this. I'm a weapon for Mars, so I'm out. This issue picks up with, I guess, the moments right before he destroys himself. And we see him just in an unbelievable amount of pain. And the narration is basically saying, like, what type of pathetic creature turns his back on his home to hide amongst another race? Who are you? Who were you? And then zap, he's turned into dust. And we see, Superman and the rest of the Justice League were there. And what's her name from NASA is like, oh, the epiphany. He talked about not wanting to be a weapon. I don't know why else he did it. But the Justice League is like, he's gone. He's dead. But then we cut over to some white Martians who apparently are in the Martian psychic war room looking over the Earth. And they say, that coward, he betrayed us. The red rising, it is gone now. Our plans for resurrection, what are we supposed to do? And all of a sudden the globe of the Earth turns to Mars. And they're like, oh, it's so close to being alive again. If only. And then in comes a big red Martian whose name is Malefak. I'm just going to call him Mal. And the white Martians are like, hey, we thought you were dead, man. You haven't spoken up in a while. And he's like, you stupid Earthborn white Martians don't get to be so lucky. I get to show up now and say what's going to happen. And yeah, the weapon was a coward. He betrayed us. He did his own thing, went native. But we will still be able to turn the Earth into the barren dust ball that Mars was. We're going to take its water. We're going to take its oceans and all that stuff. The blood and the dirt is all going to come over to Mars. And we're going to make it the way it was before. The epiphany has begun. Red rising. Soon Phobos will sing again. And they're all like, okay, but like, we can't stand up to the weapon alone. And I guess at this point, Mal also says, by the way, the weapon wasn't destroyed. Like, he's too much of a coward to kill himself. He just spread his essence out across the planet. It's still out there. We just got to reassemble it. But they're like, yeah, but he doesn't want to fight for us. And it was a weapon. We're all weak comparatively. How are we supposed to do it? And Mal uses his psychic abilities, whatever they may be, to take the 4 white Martians that are there and says, well, you guys are shapeshifters, right? Time to shapeshift. And he merges them all together into the Martian Man-Eater. It's just a giant white Martian looking thing, and it's towering over them and apparently uses black Martian magic. So we cut over to a hospital in DC, back to Agent Wessel, who wasn't seen since the first issue. And he's looking over that creepy kid, Liew, who killed his mom. And Leo's just like, oh, yeah, hey, do I look like I'm enjoying myself? After all, tell me about your mother. I killed mine. She's down in the morgue. And Wessel's like, God, you are a creepy kid. I don't like you. I don't want to be around you. Every instinct is telling me to just kill you right now, but I ain't going to do that because I'm a good cop. So he rushes out of the room. He hops on the phone, says like, hey, can someone please come down here and like relieve me of duty? Can someone take over? Because like, I got to get away from this kid. And they're like, yeah, all right, no problem. We'll get down there. However, one thing that Liew was saying was bothering him. He was mentioning his siblings and was saying like, what about your siblings? Are they real, Wessel? Are you sure? And he rushes out and he's like, yes, I have a brother. His name is Isaac. He lives down in Baltimore. I've got a scar on my arm from when he accidentally stabbed me with a fork. Like, it's a whole thing. And then the ghost of John Jones, Martian Manhunter, shows up and says like, hey, you should probably run. And he's like, what in the hell? What's going on? And he's like, look, the person you just spoke to on the phone is coming to take you, and he's going to commit genocide because he just discovered who you are. He's not human. You can't get captured. And he's like, what? And he's like, sorry, Wessel. I wanted you to be real. I wanted you to be a real boy, but you're not. And Martian Manhunter reaches into him, like blows his mind, shows him visions of the oncoming attack from Mars. And he's like, no, I'm Daryl Wessel. You can't tell me otherwise. He's like, nah, man, Daryl doesn't exist. So Daryl runs into the hospital, and one of the other things Leo said was like, hey, I killed my mom because she's a Martian. If you go down to the morgue and you set her on fire, it will reveal her true form. And Leo's like, or not Leo, Wessel's like, that's creepy. You're a creepy kid. But in his panic, and as we hear over the news of saying like, oh yes, the terrorist attacks, we have to fight back, blah, blah, blah. He goes down to the morgue, he pulls out the mother, and he's like, I can't believe I'm doing this, but something in my brain says I have to. So he douses the body in gasoline, sets it on fire, and wouldn't you know it, it transforms. It's a Martian. So we cut over, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit confused at this point. A bunch of black vans come up into the ambulance loading area. Somebody says, hey, you guys got to move. This is the ambulance bay. I'll have you guys towed. And then the guys get out and they pull off their glasses and they're just glowing white eyes. And they're like, oh, get out. We got to find Leo. The Red Rising is upon us. And then all of a sudden the ambulance kicks on and turns out Wessel is driving it. I don't know if this was always the plan or what's going on, but he drives right through these guys, and Leo is apparently in the back. He's in a wheelchair, but he wasn't strapped down, so it's just flying everywhere as they start tearing ass down the road. However, they aren't able to make it very far because the Martian Man-Eater shows up, the giant white Martian, and just tosses the ambulance onto its side. They're stuck. There's no way they're getting out of this. And Leo's like, okay, I'm bleeding a lot, you stupid. And then all of a sudden, as Wessel's trying to fire off some shots into it, there's a little tap on the back of the Martian Man-Eater. Sorry. And it's Mr. Biscuits and the little kid. And the kid's just like, you better give him biscuits or he's going to mess you up good. And then the Martian Man-Eater roars at him and he's like, oh, no biscuits then. All right, let's get started. So he pulls apart his cane, turns it into nunchucks, and just starts going nuts on Martian Man-Eater. All the while just singing about like crumbs and cookies and whatever else like that. So Alicia, the kid, goes over to the ambulance and Mr. Biscuit's like, oh, get into the ambulance, please. And she's like, it's on its side. And then he uses some sort of telekinesis to turn it back upright. And she's like, oh, you can do things? Awesome. So she hops into the truck. Mr. Biscuits hops on to the other side where Wessel is, saying like, hey, I just stunned that thing, but we got to get going right now, okay? We're not going to have long. And Wessel's like, who the hell are you? And he's like, what? Don't be dumb. I thought that it was obvious. And he pulls off his mask that he's been wearing this whole time to reveal what I can only describe as Martian Manhunter mixed with Chunk from the Goonies. And he says, I'm the Martian Manhunter, and so are you. And that's the issue. Yeah, sure. Right? I mean, look, here's the thing. Some of this book, very few aspects of this book, are in my memory from when I first read it. I did give this book a once-over years and years and years ago. And the one bit that stuck to me was these characters are all Martian Manhunter. I remembered that bit. I remembered Mr. Biscuits, Martian Manhunter. Wessel, Martian Manhunter. That thief lady that is over in Dubai or whatever, Martian Manhunter. All that stuff I remember being a thing. Everything else is kind of fresh to me. So, I don't know. It's not that I dislike the issue, because I don't, but it just doesn't feel like cohesive. Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't, like, compared to the last issue, and the last two issues I felt were very tightly knit together. But then once John kills himself, once he gets atomized, there's this idea that he didn't actually die, his essence was just spread across, but then you get this thing where, okay, but they've always been, like, they were at least still existing prior to John killing himself, so it must have been something already in place. And then, I don't know, the White Martian War Room, I think the biggest issue here is that it's introducing a lot of things to Martian Manhunter's lore that I don't think are commonly accepted. It's not like you're rewriting this entire thing. His entire origin story is now that he was a weapon for the White Martians, and he was never the last Martian. And all this other stuff was happening. We got all these other characters that he's already had set up. And I think when you ask the audience to accept that much stuff, you need to really make sure they have time to digest it. And I don't think this book is really giving me that time. It's asking me to accept, like, oh, this guy's Martian Manhunter, and so is that guy. And also, there's a big red Martian Manhunter who can use magic, and he can make white Martians into a bigger white Martian. And also, John isn't dead. His ghost is still alive, but also the physical aspects of him are also still alive. And it's like, okay, it's a lot. You're asking for a lot, and it's only been 3 issues. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have killed John Jones so early on. Maybe it's a thing where you just take it slower. You can still have the reveal that they're all Martian Manhunter, but like maybe not have the ghost appear and just directly say that. Just have Mr. Biscuit say it at the end and say like, oh, okay, it's something at the very least. But I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. I'm just going to give it a score of a 6.5. I think it's a fine issue, just not exactly top tier in my books. And I don't know, maybe it's just a bit too heady for me. I don't know what I'm really looking for it, but it's just missing the mark. Bizarro number 3, written by Heath Corson, art by Gustavo Duarte, with a single page by Fabio Moon. So last issue we arrived in an old west town that actually had ghosts, and we met up with a bounty hunter named Chastity Hex. This issue picks up with Bizarro, Jimmy, and Chastity getting their picture taken at an old-timey photo booth thing, but it is actually old-timey. It's run by a guy who like is a ghost, and he is like actually from that time period of early 1900s, late 1800s. So as they take the picture, Jimmy's like, can I get a copy of that? And he's like, yeah, I'll put it on the Pony Express. You can get it in 3 to 4 months. And he's like, all right, never mind. So they talk about how bright the flash was. Bizarro, still blinded, ends up just walking through a wall. And they look around the city at night and they see it's just tons of ghosts. And Chastity's like, all right, well, I'm going to go look for my bounty. His name's Jeremiah Blackhurst. You guys do whatever you want. This is my thing. And as they're walking over to a nearby saloon, they talk about their nicknames, and Jimmy's like, oh yeah, I'm James Deadeye Olsen. And Bizarro's like, ooh, me one stupid nickname too. And as they walk in towards the thing, Bizarro walks through a ghost, but the ghost believes that Bizarro is the ghost, and he's part of a couple, like there's a young woman with him, and he's like, oh, I'll defend my lady's honor from you, foul ghoul. Put up your dukes for fisticuffs. And Bizarro's like, what? And the guy tries throwing a punch and realizes they can't land hits on each other. Bizarro has no effect on the ghost has no effect on Bizarro. But the young woman's just like, oh my, you vanquished them there vapors. And he's like, yes, and now I'm going to ask you to marry me, and let's ditch this promenade. So they finally make their way into the saloon, and Bizarro like introduces himself, and James steps in and he's like, yeah, I'm Deadeye Olsen, and this is the Bizarro kid. And he's like, ooh, me hate nickname. So they walk up to the bar, they order some drinks. Behind the bar there's a bugle, because it's called the Bugle Bar, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a cavalry bugle. It calls in for the cavalry. And Bizarro keeps on mispronouncing it over and over again. As the bartender slides some drinks down the bar to him, they of course pass right through their hands, and they're like, yeah, I didn't know what you would bother to expect. But then all of a sudden the guy comes running in saying, he's back, he's coming back, everyone hide. And Bizarro like puts out his arm saying like, who's back? And he ends up hitting a guy in the face, and it actually does connect. And he's like, wait a minute, you're real, you must be Jeremiah Blackhurst. And so Jeremiah just sweeps Jimmy's feet and then starts running out through the crowd of ghosts. Bizarro tries to grab hold, but ends up phasing through, grabbing the wrong guy, and Jeremiah gets away. So we see what all the commotion was about, what all the ghosts are freaked out about. Turns out there's a bunch of ghost Rough Riders, a bunch of ghost outlaws terrorizing the town, and his name is El Papagayo. And he's coming in asking for his tribute. He looks like a stereotypical pirate, like he's got a parrot on his shoulder and everything, but the rest of them all look pretty normal. And Jimmy's like, okay, well, let's leave, let's get out of here. But Bizarro's like, no, we have to help. So We see everyone in town is being shaken down for their money, including the guy who just proposed to his girlfriend's now engaged, and he's like, oh, this is my life savings. I've been waiting to save up in order to give her the wedding of her dreams. And he's like, oh, well, I've also felt the salty kiss of love on my blood pumper. And then he pulls out his ghost gun and shoots the ghost in the shoulder, to which he goes down and is like, gracious, I fear I've been shot. So then Bizarro's like, all right, I'm getting involved. So he jumps over, and he, of course, messes up the name of Papagayo to Papaguano, which they recognize that he's calling them bat poop, and it's just like, all right, let's gun him down. So they fire off ghost bullets. It doesn't affect Bizarro. Bizarro uses freeze vision. It doesn't affect them. And it's just like, all right, well, let's keep it up. Let's see what we can do. And Papagayo fires off a bunch more shots. Bizarro gets a pop gun, and just the cork just, and that's it. Like, it doesn't do anything. And so Papagayo's like, well, it seems we're evenly matched, except I've got one last trick to try. And he goes up into Bizarro's nose, possession style, and we get a full-page spread by Fabio Moon of the inner machinations of Bizarro and how his brains are in his fists. His heart is like 20 times the size of a normal heart, because he really is just all heart, and there's a inner representation of his inner child just swinging from the bottom of it. So that's the point where he needs to take over. Chastity comes back and is like, what's wrong with your friend? And Jimmy's like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden he snaps out of it, and he's like, oh, hey, I was wondering what happened to you. And then he starts talking normally, and he's got this evil grin on his face. And Cullen, Chupacabra's still on his shoulder. He's also now got this evil grin, and it turns out he's been possessed by Papaguayo. So Bizarro starts throwing fists at Chastity and Jimmy, and he's like, oh, look how powerful this body is. I could do anything in it. So Chastity's like, all right, well, you have fun with that. I'm going to bounce. And he's like, whoa, you're not going to help me save my friend? And she's like, no, I'm a bounty hunter. I got nothing to help out with that. So, but she does say, I'm bounty hunter Chastity Hex. And then Papagayo's like, do you say Hex as in Jonah Hex? And she's like, yeah, I mean, I think I'm his descendant. Genealogy.com makes you subscribe after like 8 hours. And he's like, oh, well, I got a bone to pick with Hex and anybody else in his clan. So as he approaches, Chastity pulls out a shotgun, says, sorry, Jimmy, I know he's his friend, but like, I don't care. Pulls the trigger, blows the shot into Bizarro's face. He catches the bullets in his mouth, and he's like, good to know I'm bulletproof. So at that point, he undoes his freeze vision, starts blasting it at them. They weave, dodge, and stuff like that. Jimmy's like, all right, I gotta call Superman. Reaches for his Superman signal watch. Turns out, oh yeah, right, I got shook hands with the Riddler an issue or two ago, and I must have lost it then. And we cut over to the Riddler just messing around with the watch, and Superman just shows up, and Riddler's like, oh, whoops. So we see Bizarro experimenting with his fire breath, and he's like, oh, as soon as I'm done taking over this town, I'm going to take over the world. And Jimmy points out, like, yeah, we got to do something. Look, regardless of whether or not he's a good guy or not, he would do the same for me. So we got to save him. And so they, as Bizarro busts down in through the roof and finds them, they run out the building, then run back towards the bugle bar, and he's like, wait a minute. That's it. That's what we need. And he runs into the bar, he grabs the cavalry bugle, and he plays it. And as Bizarro lifts up the entire bar around Jimmy and is about to kill him, in comes the cavalry, which is a horde of DC Old West heroes, including Jonah Hex, riding up on horses. And they say, hey, is that you, El Papagayo? And he's like, yeah, well, you can't do anything because I'm inside this body. And he's like, well, we'll see about that. And so Jonah Hex goes inside of Bizarro as well, and then yanks out El Papagayo from inside, and he's like, all right, I've got you. And, you know, El Papagayo's like, oh, well, you haven't seen the last of me, Jimmy Olsen, or sorry, Deadeye Olsen and the Bizarro kid. So Bizarro's now back to normal. And he's like, Jimmy, you saved me. Oh, it was great. And he hugs him. In comes Blackhurst, who says, hey, boss, look, I found my own body to possess. And then Chastity butts him in the face with the gun, knocking the ghost out of him. So both Jonah Hex and Chastity Hex now hold their respective ghost and outlaw at gunpoint, and they complement each other's hats. So at that point, we see the next morning, all the ghosts start disappearing. Chastity says, hey, I'm out of gas in my car. If you can get me to town, I'll split the bounty with you. And Jimmy's like, I don't know, maybe we should have a little bit bigger of a bounty, because, you know, Bizarro did do all the heavy lifting, and Bizarro's just like, deal, we're good, hop in. And they drive off into the sunset with a billboard showing that the next issue will have Zatanna. There you go. I think that's one thing I do appreciate about these issues, is that while there is this overarching arc of road trip, we're making our way to Canada, everything is very self-contained. Every issue is just, you don't have to remember anything that happened before. If you do, it's just like literally the cliffhanger at the end. Everything is very self-contained, and it makes it very easy to jump in. And it's not something where it's like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's disconnected. It feels like it is all a cohesive whole. And I think a lot of that comes down to the art style and the writing just being so consistently on point, like the exact same each time. It doesn't feel like any one issue is doing anything significantly different. So no, it's a solid book. I am still getting a lot of a kick out of it. I do think this one probably did not have the strongest jokes comparatively to the previous two issues, but it wasn't bad by any means. So I'm going to say this one is I'll say 7, and we'll call it there. Doomed number 3, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Javier Fernandez. So last issue, we got basically just a continuation of the story. Reiser gets found by his roommate and is brought back home, and then also the kid bounty hunter came across the last location that Reiser was known to be at. It pretty much doesn't matter. We just kind of pick up totally separately, but we pick up 3 years ago at the Metropolis Museum of History, where there is some sort of terroristic thing going on. There's gunmen. We see everybody running for their lives. However, Roman, the roommate, is there talking to, I believe, his boyfriend, or at least a friend named Lexus, who Lexus is a lot worse for wear. Roman got shot in the leg, but Lexus got shot in the chest. And he's like, oh my God, what happened? What's going on? And as Lexus starts fading out, Roman's like, hey, I'm going to go get help. It's all going to be okay. And Lexus says, I love you. And he leans down and like cries with him for a second. And he's like, oh, I'll be right back, as he slips away. So Roman gets up. He realizes he's bleeding out of his leg. He's like, all right, I need a tourniquet real quick. So he stumbles through the museum and comes across, I'm not even kidding, the name of the museum is Objects from the Unknown exhibit. So he gets some random ass strings or something, ties it around his leg, and all of a sudden magic starts happening as a terrorist comes in, tells him to get down on the ground. All of a sudden he gets transformed into the Alpha Centurion, and he has a whole personality shift to match. He's like, what, have you never seen the greatest images of the Alpha Centurion, the poetry written about me? Legends quake before me, and thou shall be a cautionary tale. And he punches out the terrorists. So we cut to today as Reiser and Roman are walking through the park, walking the little fluffy dog Wee Wee, and apparently the dog loves everybody. It will jump up and lick and bark happily at anybody except for Reiser. He hates Reiser. So we see Reiser's basically internally like, oh man, I have to figure out how to get my life back. Oh God, something's going on here. And he's just talking about all of his problems with being doomed. And we see Roman's like, hey, all right, I gotta go. Have fun walking the dog. I'll see you later. And he has this internal thing of like, oh man, it's so tough to keep this secret at the Alpha Centurion. How do I'm scared that one day I won't be able to turn back afterwards, that the Alpha Centurion will just keep my body forever. And then it transitions over to Reiser's monologue, where he's basically saying the same thing of like, that guy's so lucky, he's got everything going on, and then I'm just like, I'm a monster now, I'm crushed or whatever. So turns out he looks over, and the whole reason he set up this thing at the park where he's walking the dog is he wanted to meet up with Jane, the other intern who was with him at Star Labs. And he runs over, he's like, hey Jane, I didn't think you would show up. And she's like, what, you think I'm that stuck up I couldn't spare 10 minutes? Yeah, not a big deal. And then the dog jumps out of his hands and like leaps over to her and is of course just a little bucket of cuddles. And she's like, oh, you're adorable. And she's like, yeah, it's great. Anyway, sorry I was late to show up. And we see off in the shadows this little kid bounty hunter with a little glowing wristwatch. just watching Reiser. So Jane basically says, okay, what's up? I don't have a lot of time. What do you want to talk about? And he's like, well, remember when you were supervising and I was doing all the hard work? I may have taken off my mask and may have been exposed to stuff. And she's like, okay, so you self-contaminated. Fair enough. Are you showing any symptoms? And he's like, no, I feel great. And he's like, I don't know why I'm lying. I have absolutely no idea, but like, what am I supposed to say? They're like, oh, actually, I'm a raging rage monster that goes around attacking things. Like, yeah, that would clearly go well. And he's basically like, no, I just wanted to talk to you first before I went to the supervisor because I think they want to run some tests. And she's like, no, you are not doing that. If you tell the supervisor, they're going to know that I shirked on my job by letting you do that, and I am not letting you ruin my life by telling them that. So shut up. You don't have any symptoms, nothing bad. Like, maybe we can figure this out ourselves. After all, we're working at Star Labs. We're practically super geniuses. And Reiser's internal monologue is like, oh yeah, I never even thought that this might impact her. It's stupid. It's stupid to me. So she is basically saying like, yeah, we'll go ahead. I'll run down. I'll see if I can figure out what was in that room before we got there. And you do nothing until I get to look at whatever was going on there. And Reiser just starts daydreaming about like marrying her, having children, all that other stuff. And just like, yeah, like that's ever going to happen. And he's talking to the dog, but then the dog's disappeared. Dog has run off and he freaks out. He starts going around asking everybody he can in the park until he comes across a side of the park that has a zoo that has been boarded up. The very common abandoned zoos. And so he crawls in and he's like, wee, you here? What's going on? And he starts feeling winded. He starts feeling very, stressed out. And he's like, oh, crap, that's the same way I felt before I transformed last time. And as he makes his way back into the zoo, he comes across the weird little kid, Miles Chandler III, who's holding Wee. And he's like, is this your dog? And this is like, yeah, hey, great, thanks. I was looking for it. He's like, yes, I'm good at tracking down creatures. And Reiser's like, it sounds weird when you say it like that. And he's like, yes, anyway, Reiser, what's really creepy is your arm. And it turns out he's starting to transform into Doomed. And he's like, oh, no. And he's like, yep, guess you can't control your transformations yet. But I'll gladly take you out before then. He fires off the laser shot. Reiser blocks it. And he's basically saying, like, what did I ever do to you? And he's speaking now in monster. He's just growling or whatever. And he's like, whatever, I've got no interest in dying today. But then Miles responds to him and says, well, unfortunately, you don't have any say in that. He fires off another shot, but it doesn't stop him. But Reiser realizes, wait a minute, hold on. You can hear me? You can understand my growls? And Miles is like, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be much of a monster hunter if I can speak monstre, which, sure, whatever, make it an actual language. And he just kind of holds down Miles and just be like, look, I don't know what's going on here, but you're going to tell me everything you know before I knock out all your teeth. And Miles is like, please don't hurt me, mister. I'm just a scared little kid. And Ryder's like, oh my God, I just nearly beat up a little kid, which then gives Miles the equal opportunity to knock Doomed halfway across the park. And he's like, ah, crap, I was being played. That's dumb. So Miles walks over to him, gets an even bigger gun trained on him, and he's like, yeah, look, this is just my job. I don't take joy in your demise. I got bills to pay. I got mouths to feed. So whatever it is, I'm going to go ahead and kill you now and get the bounty. Any last words? And he just says, like, please, I don't want to die. I'm just a kid. I really don't know what happened here. I don't want to die. I'm not here. Please. Oh, God. And Miles is like, look, you caught me in a particularly good mood for whatever reason. I hunt down monsters that pretend to be human. You seem to be the opposite, and I've never come across that before. So for right now, I'm not going to kill you until we at least figure out what is going on with you, you freaking weirdo. So lay low, and then I'll see what I can find out. And so he sends out a teleporter and goes back off to wherever he was going to. And the wee comes over and licks Reiser's monster body on the face, because I guess it doesn't recognize him as Reiser. He's just like, all right, well, that's weird. And finally, we get the last pages, which are Star Labs. A plane comes in, and little interns welcoming whoever's coming off the plane, being like, oh, hi, my name's Alicia. It's an honor to meet you. And disembarking the plane is the Elites, a.k.a. Wonder Girl, Power Girl, and Flash Kid Flash, but she calls him Flash Boy. And this is just a byproduct of what's going on over in Teen Titans. They are a separate team that work for Star Labs, and they're saying, yeah, all right, well, what do you need us here for? And they say, we have a problem that only you guys can solve. And theoretically, it's probably doomed, but they don't directly say it. That's the issue. I'll give him this. From a pacing perspective, for a 6-issue series, it feels right. Like, we're 3 issues done, 3 issues left. It feels right. It feels like we're at the right sort of tempo here. My concern is we've got 4 different plots. We have the Alpha Centurion plot. We have the Miles Chandler bounty hunter plot. We have the intern at Star Labs plot. And then we have that other girl who we met in Lex Towers plot. All 4 of those are completely separate things, each of which with their own motives. And we've only got 3 issues left. So something's going to have to go by the wayside. I don't know what, we will see, but it does feel about right pacing-wise. Writing-wise, it's kind of just repeating itself over and over again. Oh no, I'm a monster, everything sucks, what am I supposed to do? Like, I get it. He feels like a teenager. He feels like someone fresh out of high school, but like, God Lord, kid, just like suck it up just a little bit. I don't actually want to hear a teenager whine all day. So 6.5, I guess. I don't feel right giving it the 7. Something in my gut says it doesn't get there, but it objectively is an okay issue. I don't think I have anything more to say beyond that. It's okay. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out from DC Comics this August 19th, 2015. And I do want to say one thing as we're wrapping up here. I don't know if it's going to be relevant, but I'm actually moving next weekend. Not this upcoming one at the time of release, but the one after that. It shouldn't impact filming. I should be able to get an episode out without any sort of issue, especially because DC were very kind to me with the episode following the move only having 8 comics that need reviewing. So thank you so much for that. However, the set, the visuals, and all these books I got here might need to be packed up before that point. I don't know, and it shouldn't make any sort of difference, but just letting you know, because these are the things that matter to me. Anyway, what do we got coming out next week? Next week we actually do a packed week, so gonna at least have to keep something around until then. We've got 15 comics coming out, and in alphabetical order they are Aquaman, Batgirl, Cyborg, Deathstroke, The Flash, Gotham by Midnight, Grayson, Harley Quinn, Justice League 3001, Justice League of America, Prez, Sinestro, Superman, Teen Titans, and We Are Robin. Oh god, it's so hard not to do the We Are Farmers jingle bit there. It's so difficult, but I don't because it's played out. Anyway, that is going to do it for me. So if you have any comments that you would like to share on any of the comics I talked about this week, last week, any week at all, go ahead and hit them up in the comment section down below this video if you were watching on YouTube. But if you were listening to the audio version, or I don't know, some pirate upload of this show on some other like Russian website I'm unfamiliar with, we have multiple other places that you can contact us at, such as a Discord and a subreddit and a Patreon. Links may be on the screen and or in the show notes, so be sure to check those out and make your voice heard. By God, this is America, unless, again, you're on a Russian website, in which case, do svidaniya. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.